Part 5. Why They Run. Warlord Grathzor studied the tactical display on his command ship. 17 human vessels surrounded his fleet of 50. The numbers favored him heavily. Vraxian warships were larger, more powerful, and crewed by warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. These humans were upstarts, newcomers to the galaxy. Power weapons, he ordered. Target the closest human ship. Show them what happens when they threaten Vraxian warriors. His weapons officer hesitated. Sir, they're transmitting something. A message to all ships in the area. I don't care about their messages. Sir, it's a warning. They're giving us 60 seconds to power down weapons and withdraw. They say this is our last chance to leave peacefully. The warlord clicked his mouth parts in what might have been laughter. They offer us a chance? They are surrounded. They should be begging for mercy. He leaned forward in his command chair. Open fire! The Vraxian warship's main cannon fired at the Relentless. The blast should have crippled the human destroyer. But the Relentless was already moving, sliding sideways with precision that shouldn't have been possible for a ship that size. The blast missed by mere meters. Captain Tajin's voice came over the open channel. That was your answer, very well. All ships engage at will. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ships moved like a school of fish, each one responding to the others in perfect coordination. They dove through the Vraxian formation, firing at weak points, targeting engine sections and weapon systems. They weren't trying to destroy, not yet. They were disabling, crippling, removing threats from the battlefield. The Vraxians returned fire, but the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. They did things that military doctrine said were impossible. They used gravity wells to slingshot around asteroids. They flew so close to each other that their shields overlapped. They executed maneuvers that would have torn apart ships from other species. On the Relentless, Tajin watched his tactical display with calm focus. Target the command ship's port engines. Fire on my mark. The Relentless shuddered as it fired. The blast hit exactly where Tajin had aimed. Grathzor's command ship lurched to one side, engines failing. But the warlord wasn't finished. Ram them, he ordered. Use our mass. Crush their small ships. The Vraxian warships were larger and heavier. In a ramming attack, they should have had the advantage. But the humans had studied Vraxian tactics. They knew this would come. A human frigate, the smallest ship in the fleet, suddenly accelerated directly toward a Vraxian cruiser. It looked like a suicide run. The Vraxian captain smiled, confident his heavier ship would survive the impact. At the last second, the frigate spun sideways and fired full thrusters. It scraped along the Vraxian hull, its shields grinding against armor, tearing open the cruiser's sensor array and communication systems. Then it was past, damaged but functional, while the Vraxian ship drifted blind and deaf. The battle lasted 40 minutes. No human ship was destroyed. 12 Vraxian warships were disabled. The rest were damaged and falling back. On Station Helios, Dahyun watched the tactical feed with mixed feelings. He hadn't wanted this. He had tried so hard to avoid it. But the warlord hadn't listened. Ambassador Soyon stood beside him. You gave him every chance, she said quietly. I know, Dahyun replied. But people are still getting hurt. That's on me. No, Soyon said firmly. That's on him. He made his choices. You made yours. Don't carry his burden. On the Vraxian command ship, Warlord Grathzor watched his fleet fall apart around him. His weapons were offline. His engines were crippled. His shields were failing, and the human ships just kept coming, never stopping, never giving up. A communication channel opened. Captain Tajin appeared again. His uniform was perfect. His expression was calm. He looked like a man having a normal conversation, not fighting a battle. Warlord, Tajin said, I'm going to offer you something now. The same thing Lieutenant Commander Dahyun offered your son. The same thing every human offers before we fight. A peaceful resolution. You're offering me mercy. The warlord's voice was full of disbelief. You're winning and you offer mercy? Yes, Tajin said simply. We don't enjoy this.
We never have.
Fighting is wasteful. People die. Ships are destroyed. Resources are spent. We prefer the other way. The talking way. But you didn't give us that option. I could still destroy you, Grathzor said, but his voice lacked conviction. You could try. Tajin agreed. You have more ships. You might take some of us down. But you know what will happen if you do. We'll send for reinforcements. They'll send more humans. And they won't stop coming until every ship in your fleet is disabled or destroyed. That's what humans do. We don't give up, ever. The warlord was silent for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had heard the stories about humans, about persistence hunting, about how humans chased their prey for days until it couldn't run anymore. They had thought the stories were exaggerations. They weren't. What are your terms? Krathazor asked finally. Simple, Tajin said. Your son will serve his sentence for piracy and assault. 60 days in station custody, comfortable conditions, proper food and medical care. After that, he'll be released to your custody. You will withdraw your fleet immediately. You will not threaten Station Helios or any of its inhabitants again. In return, we will provide repair assistance to your damaged ships and medical care for your wounded. You would help us? After we attacked you? Yes, Tajin said. Because that's what civilized species do. We fight when we must, but when the fighting is over, we help each other. That's the difference between war and murder. The warlord looked at his tactical display one more time, at his crippled fleet, at the human ships still circling, still ready to fight if needed. He thought about his son, sitting in a cell on Station Helios, probably understanding for the first time what it meant to push a human too far. I accept your terms, he said. The tension in the council chamber eased immediately. Representatives who had been preparing to evacuate returned to their seats. The emergency was over, but Soyan knew the real work was just beginning. Warlord Grathzor had learned his lesson, but there were thousands of species in the galaxy, thousands who didn't understand humans yet, who saw human patience as weakness, who would need to learn one way or another. 6 months passed. Station Helios was busier than ever. Merchants came from across the galaxy to trade in safety. The station's reputation had grown. It was the place where humans had fought 50 warships and won. But more importantly, it was the place where humans had offered mercy after winning. Daehyun was back on duty, though he had been promoted. He was now the station's chief security officer. His knuckles had healed, leaving small scars he never bothered to remove. They were a reminder. He was drinking coffee at his favorite Kalari vendor when he heard a familiar voice. Excuse me, Commander Park. He turned. It was the Quilari mother whose child had been struck by the Vraxian pirates. She was holding her daughter's hand. The child had a small scar on her cheek, but she was smiling. We wanted to thank you, the mother said. Her voice was nervous. You saved us. You protected my child. Daehyun knelt down so he was at the child's eye level. Are you okay? He asked gently. The child nodded. She held out a piece of paper. It was a drawing, done in the simple style of children everywhere. It showed a figure standing between 2 smaller figures and a group of monsters. The monsters had too many arms and looked scary. The standing figure was labeled Hero Human. Why did the bad ones run away? The child asked. After you said you were annoyed? Daehyun looked at the drawing for a long moment. How do you explain this to a child? How do you tell her about evolution and persistence hunting, and the weight of knowing what you're capable of? Because, he said finally, sometimes even scary things are afraid of something. And they learned that humans don't stop trying. We try the nice way first. We try talking and being patient. But if that doesn't work, we keep trying other ways until everyone is safe. So you're like a protector? The child asked. Yes, Daehyun said. That's exactly what I am. The mother thanked him again and left with her daughter. Daehyun stood there holding the drawing, feeling the weight of it. This was why humans tried so hard to be peaceful. Because there were children in the galaxy who needed to feel safe. And if being patient and diplomatic made them safe, then that's what humans would do. But if someone hurt those children, if someone pushed past all the patience and all the warnings, then humans would do whatever it took. Because humans were protectors. And protectors didn't give up. At the Galactic Institute, Professor Minho Choi was finishing another lecture. A new group of students sat before him, learning about human psychology, learning about the phrase that had become famous across the galaxy. Remember, Minho said, when a human says they're getting annoyed, they're not threatening you. They're warning you. They're telling you that they've tried everything else. They're giving you one last chance to stop, to leave, to choose the peaceful path. A student raised a tentacle. Professor, why should we fear a warning? Why not just ignore it? Minho smiled sadly. Because ignoring it means you'll learn the lesson the hard way. You'll learn what humans become when patience ends. You'll learn why we're the most diplomatic species in the galaxy. Part 4. The Galactic Council's Dilemma. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 hours after the incident on Station Helios. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the massive council chamber. Holographic projections filled the air, showing delegates who couldn't attend in person. Everyone was talking at once. Ambassador Soyeon Lee represented humanity at the council. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a calm manner. She had been Earth's ambassador for 7 years. She was good at her job because she understood both humans and aliens. She knew how to bridge the gap between different ways of thinking. Right now she was listening to the Vraxian representative scream at her. "Your human attacked my people without provocation," the Vraxian roared. He was even larger than Threxmar, with battle scars covering his armor. "This is an act of war." Soyeon waited until he finished. Then she spoke in a quiet voice. "Your people took hostages on neutral ground. They struck a child. My officer defended innocent civilians. That is his job. 1 human against 15 Vraxian warriors," the representative said. "This is not defense. This is aggression. This is showing that humans think they are superior. If my officer had thought he was superior, he wouldn't have spent 3 hours trying to negotiate peacefully." Soyeon replied. "He tried diplomacy. Your people refused. Then they hurt a child. What would you have done?" The chamber erupted in argument. Some species sided with the Vraxians. They feared human violence. They worried about what humans might do if given too much power. Other species defended Daehyun. They had seen the footage. They knew he had tried every peaceful option first. The council mediator, an ancient being from a species that had been traveling space for 10,000 years, raised one limb for silence. "The immediate problem is not what happened," the mediator said. "The immediate problem is what happens next. We have received a transmission from Warlord Grathzor. He is Threxmar's father. He is coming here with a fleet." A holographic display showed a Vraxian armada. 50 warships, all heavily armed, all moving toward Station Helios. "He demands we release his son," the mediator continued.
"And he demands we surrender the human officer who attacked his son."
"If we refuse, he will destroy the station." Fear rippled through the council chamber. 50 Vraxian warships could easily destroy Station Helios. Thousands would die. The station was a symbol of galactic peace. "Destroying it would be catastrophic. We must give him what he wants," someone said. "We cannot let him destroy the station." "No," Soyeon said firmly. "Earth will not abandon our officer. He did his duty. We will not sacrifice him to appease a warlord." "Then you condemn everyone on that station to death," the Vraxian representative shouted. Soyeon stood. She looked around the chamber at all the representatives. "Let me tell you a story," she said. 15 years ago, Commander Jiwon Kim faced a similar choice. Surrender to superior force or fight. She chose to fight. She defeated 17 warships with 1 small ship. "Do you know why?" The chamber was silent. "Because humans don't abandon their principles when threatened," Soyeon continued. "We prefer peace. We will negotiate. We will compromise. But we will not surrender our people to murderers and pirates. Not ever. This is pride," a delegate said. "Pride will get everyone killed." "No," Soyeon said. "This is principle." "There is a difference." Before anyone could respond, a new voice spoke. It came from a small console near Soyeon's seat. The holographic projection showed Daehyun, still in the medical bay on Station Helios. "Ambassador Lee," he said. "With respect, I request permission to resolve this myself." Soyeon looked at him with something like sadness. "Daehyun, no. I caused this situation," Daehyun said. "Let me fix it. I can speak to the warlord. I can negotiate. Maybe we can avoid more violence." The Vraxian representative clicked his mouthparts. "The warlord will not negotiate with the creature who attacked his son. He will kill you on sight." "Maybe," Daehyun said. "But I should try. That's what we do, isn't it? We try." Soyeon was quiet for a long moment. She knew what Daehyun was offering. He would sacrifice himself to save the station. It was exactly the kind of thing a human would do. Exactly the kind of thing that made other species both respect and fear them. "Very well," she said finally. "But I'm staying on this channel. If negotiations fail, we have other options." "What options?" the Vraxian representative demanded. "You have no ships here. No military force. You are helpless," Soyeon smiled slightly. "Are we?" The Vraxian fleet arrived 2 hours later. 50 massive warships surrounded Station Helios. Each ship was armed with enough firepower to level a city. Their weapons powered up, targeting the station's vital systems. A communication channel opened. Warlord Grathzor appeared on every screen in the station and in the council chamber. He was enormous, even for a Vraxian. His armor was decorated with trophies from 100 battles. "I am Warlord Grathzor," he announced. "You are holding my son. You are protecting the human who dared to touch him. You have 1 hour to surrender both, or I will destroy everything." Daehyun stepped into view of the communication pickup. He was no longer in the medical bay. He stood in Station Helios's main communication center, wearing his uniform despite the tears and bloodstains. "Warlord Grathzor," he said respectfully. "I am Lieutenant Commander Daehyun Park. I am the officer who arrested your son. I would like to explain what happened." The warlord stared at him. "You are small, weak. You think you can fight 50 warships?" "No," Daehyun said honestly. "I think I can explain the situation, and perhaps we can reach an understanding. Your son took hostages on neutral ground. He and his crew assaulted civilians. I asked them to stop. I tried to negotiate. I gave them every opportunity to leave peacefully. You attacked Vraxian warriors. I defended innocent people after your son's crew struck a child," Daehyun said. His voice remained calm. "I did only what was necessary to protect civilians and enforce station law." The warlord's mouth parts clicked angrily. "You dare lecture me about law? You a human? Your species has been in space for barely a century. We Vraxians have conquered entire sectors. We do not take lessons from prey." Daehyun took a slow breath. "I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm trying to explain. I don't want more violence. I don't want anyone else to get hurt. Please, take your son when he's released from custody in 60 days. Let this end peacefully." 60 days? The warlord's voice rose. "I will not wait 60 days. I'm offering you a choice. Surrender now, or die." "I can't do that," Daehyun said. "Then you are a fool." The warlord leaned closer to his communication device. "I know about your family, human. I know their names. I know where they live on your little planet. Perhaps after I destroy this station I will visit them. Perhaps they will learn what happens when someone touches a warlord's son." The change in Daehyun's expression was subtle, just a slight tightening around his eyes. But everyone watching recognized it. They had seen it before. "Warlord Grathzor," Daehyun said quietly, "I have been very patient. I have tried to explain. I have offered peaceful solutions. But you just threatened my family." He paused. "Now I'm really getting annoyed." The reaction in the council chamber was immediate. Half the representatives started moving toward the exits. The other half activated emergency shields around their seats. Everyone who had heard that phrase before knew what was coming. On Station Helios, Tovin the security officer was already evacuating civilians to the deepest shelters. He had started the evacuation the moment Daehyun's expression changed. Soyeon remained calm in her seat. She touched her communicator with one finger. "This is Ambassador Lee, authorization code Sierra 7 Yankee. Execute Protocol Defender." Across the galaxy, 17 human warships received the signal. They had been waiting, engines cold, weapons offline, hoping they wouldn't be needed. Now they powered up their systems and activated their stealth drives. Daehyun walked over to a communication console and entered a code. A priority channel opened to Earth Defense Command. Captain Taijin Han appeared on the screen. He was a middle-aged man with gray at his temples and the look of someone who had seen too many fights. His ship, the Relentless, was a destroyer that had been quietly observing from a distance. "Captain Han," Daehyun said formally, "requesting military intervention. Warlord Grathzor has threatened civilian targets and made personal threats against peacekeeping personnel and their families." Taijin nodded slowly. "Confirmed. We heard the transmission. Relentless and supporting vessels are moving to intercept." On his bridge, alarms sounded as sensors detected the human ships. They had been hiding in the asteroid field, in the stellar radiation zones, in all the places scanners couldn't reach. Now they were moving, and they were closer than the Vraxians had imagined possible. Warlord Grathzor watched his tactical display with growing concern. 17 contacts, human warships, surrounding his fleet. "How did they get there?" he demanded. His tactical officer had no answer. A new communication channel opened. Captain Taijin appeared on the warlord's screen. Behind him, the bridge of the Relentless hummed with controlled activity. "Warlord Grathzor," Taijin said. His voice was polite, almost friendly. "This is Captain Taijin Han of the Earth Destroyer Relentless. I need you to understand something." You threatened one of our officers. That was your first mistake. You threatened his family. Part 3. Understanding Human Annoyance. The medical bay on Station Helios was quiet when Daehyun arrived. The doctor, a six-limbed creature from Andromeda, worked on his hands without speaking. She wrapped bandages around his knuckles and gave him something for the pain. She had treated humans before. She knew they healed quickly. You will be fine in a few days, she said. Humans are tough, Daehyun nodded. He felt tired now. The fight was over and the adrenaline had left his system. He felt every bruise and every cut. Thank you, he said. The doctor hesitated before she left. My nephew was on Kepler 442b, she said quietly. He was one of the colonists. Commander Ji-won saved his life. Then she was gone. Daehyun sat alone for a moment. He thought about Ji-won. He had never met her, but every human in the peacekeeping forces knew her story. She had retired after that battle, gone back to Earth. She had done her duty, but it had cost her something. Fighting always costs something. Across the galaxy at the Galactic Institute of Xenopsychology, Professor Minho Choi was giving a lecture. His classroom was full of alien students from 20 different species. They had all come to learn about humans, the newest species to join the galactic community. Minho was human himself, which made some students nervous. He was a small man with gray hair and kind eyes. He wore simple clothes and spoke in a gentle voice. He didn't look dangerous at all. Today we will talk about human emotional responses, Minho said. He activated a holographic display that showed human brain chemistry. Specifically, we will discuss what happens when a human says they are annoyed. A Kalari student raised one of her tentacles. Professor, is it true that this word is a threat? No, Minho said. It's not a threat. It's a warning. There is a difference. He changed the display to show two human figures. One was relaxed and smiling. The other was tense and focused. Humans evolved on Earth, a planet classified as a death world by galactic standards. Everything there was trying to kill everything else. To survive, humans had to become something unique. We know this, a Drothian student said. His voice was impatient. Humans are weak individually but strong in groups. You use tools and cooperation. That is partly true, Minho agreed. But there is something else. Something that makes humans different from every other species we have encountered. We evolved as both predator and prey. The classroom went silent. This was not something they had learned before. Minho continued. Most species evolved as one or the other. Predators hunt, prey run and hide. But humans did both. We hunted animals larger and stronger than ourselves, and we were hunted by animals that saw us as food. This created a unique psychology. He showed footage of early humans on Earth, running across open grasslands. Humans developed something called persistence hunting. We would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days. The animal was faster and stronger. But we didn't stop. We just kept coming. Eventually, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. Then we would kill it. A student from a prey species made a sound of distress. Minho looked at her with sympathy. I know this sounds cruel, but understand humans were desperate. We had no claws. No armor, no poison. We had to use what we had, endurance and intelligence. What does this have to do with annoyance? The Drothian student asked. Everything, Minho said. You see, humans learn to be patient. We learned to watch and wait. We learned to control our aggression because using it wastefully meant death. On Earth, a human who attacked too early would lose their prey. A human who fought unnecessarily would get injured and die. He changed the display again. Now it showed human chemical responses during stress. So we developed patience. Deep patience. We can wait longer than most species. We can endure more frustration. We can try diplomacy even when we want to fight. This is not weakness. This is survival strategy. Minho walked between the rows of students. But that patience is not unlimited. It is like a dam holding back water. The water keeps building and building. And when the dam breaks, when humans decide they are done being patient, all that controlled aggression comes out at once. The annoyance phrase, a student whispered. Yes, Minho said. When a human says they are getting annoyed, they are telling you that the dam is about to break. They are warning you. They are giving you one last chance to stop pushing them. He showed footage from the Kepler 442b incident. The students watched in horror as the Wanderer rammed into Drothian warships. They saw humans fighting in the vacuum of space, refusing to stop even when wounded. Commander Jiwon tried diplomacy for 2 hours, Minho explained. She offered the Drothians everything she could. She exhausted every peaceful option. Only when they murdered children in front of her did she say she was annoyed. At that moment, her brain chemistry changed. Adrenaline flooded her system. Her pain tolerance increased. Her focus narrowed to a single goal: stop the threat. But she was still just one human on a small ship. The Drothian student protested. How did she defeat 17 warships? Minho smiled sadly. Because once a human becomes annoyed in that way, once they switch from diplomacy to hunting, they don't fight like other species. They don't fight to win glory or territory. They fight to survive. And humans are very, very good at surviving. He showed more footage, other incidents, other humans. A pattern emerged that the students couldn't ignore. In every case, the human had tried peace first. In every case, the human had given warnings. And in every case, when pushed past their limit, the human had done things that seemed impossible. There is a human named Hyejin Nam, Minho said. She is an ensign on a patrol ship. Last year, a Valdric assassin killed her captain and escaped. Ensign Hyejin chased that assassin across 3 star systems. 6 days of pursuit. The Valdric had every advantage. A faster ship, better weapons, knowledge of the territory. But Ensign Hyejin never stopped. She slept in 4-hour shifts. She ate while flying. She plotted intercept courses while the Valdric thought he was safe. Did she catch him? A student asked. Yes. On the 6th day, the Valdric's ship ran out of fuel. He had never imagined anyone would chase him that long. Humans don't give up. That's what you need to understand. When a human starts hunting, they don't stop until the prey is caught or they are dead. Minho showed another story. Private Suho Kang held a defensive position for 2 days against an overwhelming force. He was shot 17 times. Any other species would have died or surrendered. Suho kept fighting. He refused medical evacuation. When backup finally arrived, they found him still at his post, still conscious, still holding the line. 17 gunshot wounds, and he lived. The classroom was completely silent now. The students looked at their human professor with new eyes. He was small and old and gentle, but somewhere inside him was the same thing that was inside Jiwon and Hyejin and Suho and Daehyun. The ability to keep going when stopping made more sense. Why? A Quillari student asked. Her voice was small. Why do you fight so hard? Why not surrender when you're outnumbered? Minho thought about this question. He had asked himself the same thing many times. Because our ancestors learned that giving up meant death, so we evolved to never give up, even when it hurts, even when it seems impossible. We keep trying. This made us good diplomats. We will try every peaceful option because we genuinely want to avoid fighting, but it also makes us dangerous, because if you force us to fight, we bring that same determination to combat. You said you prefer peace, the Drothian student said. If that is true, why do you teach us to fear you? I don't teach you to fear us, Minho said gently. I teach you to understand us. Fear is what happens when you don't understand. When a human says they are annoyed, they are not trying to scare you. They are trying to save you. They are saying, please stop. Please don't make me do this. I have tried everything else. If you listen to that warning, if you stop pushing, then nobody gets hurt. The human goes back to being patient and diplomatic. Everyone is happy. And if we don't listen? A student asked. Minho turned off the display. The classroom lights came back up. Then you learn why humans are the most patient species in the galaxy. Because we have to be. Because we know what we become when our patience ends. The lecture was over. Students filed out quietly, thinking about what they had learned. The Drothian student stayed behind. He approached Minho's desk slowly. Professor, he said, I am Drothian. My people fought humans at Kepler 442b. We learned about human annoyance the hard way. I wanted to ask, does it ever get easier for you? The fighting, I mean. Minho looked at the young Drothian. He thought about all the humans he knew who had been pushed too far, who had said they were annoyed and then done terrible things to protect others. He thought about the weight they carried afterward. No, he said honestly, it never gets easier. That's why we try so hard to avoid it. The student nodded and left. Minho sat alone in his classroom thinking about Daehyun on Station Helios. News of the incident had already reached the institute. Another human pushed too far. Another fight that could have been avoided. He hoped Daehyun was okay. He hoped the young officer understood that what he did was necessary. But Minho knew the truth. Daehyun would carry this with him, just like Jiwon carried Kepler 442b. Just like every human who had ever been pushed past patience carried their own burden. Part 2. The lesson remembered. Threxmar moved first. He was faster than most species could follow. His forearms swung at Daehyun from different angles. It should have been impossible to dodge. But Daehyun wasn't there anymore. He had stepped inside the attack, too close for the long arms to reach him effectively. The human's elbow struck Threxmar's joint where the armor was weakest. The Vraxian howled in pain. Before he could recover, Daehyun had moved again, now behind another pirate. His movements were efficient. No wasted energy. Every strike hit a weak point in the Vraxian armor. 2 pirates rushed him together. Daehyun dropped low, swept one's legs, and used the falling Vraxian as a shield against the other. They crashed together in a tangle of armored limbs. Daehyun was already moving to the next target. In the security center, Tovin's assistant watched with his mouth hanging open. "He's winning." "Of course he is," Tovin said quietly. They made him annoyed. 15 years earlier, on the other side of the galaxy, another human had said those same words. Her name was Commander Jiwon Kim, and she had been leading a small exploration vessel called the Wanderer. The ship had only 30 crew members. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. They had arrived at a colony world called Kepler 442b, responding to a distress signal. What they found was horror. A Drothian war fleet had attacked the peaceful colony. Hundreds were dead. The survivors were being held in camps, waiting to be sold as slaves. Jiwon had tried to negotiate. She had contacted the Drothian commander and offered to buy the colonists freedom. She had offered supplies, technology, anything the Drothians wanted. She had spent 2 hours on that communication channel, trying every diplomatic approach she knew. The Drothian commander had refused every offer. He had laughed at her. The Drothians were a powerful military species, and they saw humans as weak newcomers to the galaxy. Then the commander had made a choice that would change galactic history. To show his power, to prove humans meant nothing, he had ordered 3 colony children brought before the viewscreen. He had executed them while Jiwon watched. The communication channel had been silent for a long moment. Then Jiwon had stood up from her captain's chair. She had removed her jacket. And she had said very quietly, "Now I'm really getting annoyed." The Wanderer's crew had known what was coming. They had sealed their suits and prepared for combat. What happened next became classified information, but rumors spread anyway. Rumors that traveled through military channels across the entire galaxy. Commander Jiwon had taken her small exploration vessel against 17 Drothian warships. Each warship was 10 times the size of the Wanderer. Each one carried hundreds of trained warriors. It should have been a massacre. It was just not the massacre the Drothians expected. Jiwon had done things that military tacticians later called insane. She had rammed her ship into a Drothian cruiser, breaching both hulls. Her crew had boarded the enemy vessel through the breach, fighting in the vacuum of space, fighting in conditions that would kill most species in seconds. Humans didn't die in seconds. They kept fighting, even when injured, even when they should have been dead. They just kept coming. The Wanderer was destroyed in the battle, but Jiwon and her crew had escape pods. They had used those pods as weapons, as battering rams, as boarding craft. They had jumped between ships in hard suits, crossing the empty void with nothing but thruster packs. The Drothians had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that didn't stop. An enemy that got more dangerous when injured. An enemy that seemed to feel no fear. By the time reinforcements arrived, 12 of the 17 Drothian warships were disabled. The Drothian commander was dead. The colony survivors were free. And Commander Jiwon Kim was standing in the ruins of the Drothian flagship, with 19 of her crew still alive. The Galactic Council had tried to keep the incident quiet. They had classified all the reports. But soldiers talk. Warriors share stories. Within a year, every military force in the galaxy had heard what happened at Kepler 442b. They had heard about the humans who wouldn't stop fighting, about the species that seemed weak until you pushed them too far, and they had heard about the phrase that Commander Jiwon had used right before it all started. Now I'm really getting annoyed. Back on Station Helios, Daehyun was surrounded by 7 Vraxian pirates now. 8 were on the ground, groaning or unconscious. The remaining pirates were more careful now, more afraid. They had realized this human was not weak. Threxmar's armor was cracked in 3 places. Purple blood seeped from the joints. He stared at Daehyun with what might have been fear. "What are you?" he demanded. "I'm annoyed," Daehyun said simply. Then he moved again. His fist caught a pirate in the throat right where the armor segments joined. The Vraxian choked and fell. Daehyun spun, his leg sweeping another pirate's feet. As that one fell, Daehyun caught him and threw him into 2 more pirates. They went down like dominoes. One pirate pulled a plasma pistol. Daehyun was moving before the weapon could fire. He grabbed the pirate's wrist, twisted sharply, and the pistol clattered away. The pirate screamed as his wrist joint broke. Threxmar tried to run. Daehyun caught him by the back of his armor and pulled him down. The massive Vraxian crashed to the deck. Daehyun's knee pressed into his back, holding him there. "Stay down," Daehyun said. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't excited. It was just tired. The last 2 pirates dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The entire fight had lasted less than 4 minutes. In the security center, alarms were still wailing. Tovan was already calling for medical teams. His assistant just stared at the screens. "I don't understand," the young Drothian said. "How did he do that?" "You're Drothian," Tovan said. "Your people learned this lesson 15 years ago. You should know the story." "What story?" Tovan pulled up an old file on his console. It was heavily classified, but he had clearance. He showed his assistant the report from Kepler 442b. "Read this. Learn it. Remember it. When humans say they're getting annoyed, they're not making a joke. They're giving you one last warning." The assistant read the report. His face changed color as he went through the details. "This can't be real. It's real. And it's not the only incident. There have been others." Tovan pulled up more files. Incident after incident. Human officers, human soldiers, human explorers, all across the galaxy, all following the same pattern. Try diplomacy. Try patience. Try every peaceful option. But when pushed too far, when that line was crossed, humans changed. They became something else. Something that didn't stop until the threat was ended. The assistant looked at the camera feed again. Daehyun was sitting on a cargo container now, breathing hard. His knuckles were bleeding. His uniform was torn. But he was alive, and all 15 Vraxian pirates were subdued. "Why do they wait so long?" the assistant asked. "If they can fight like this, why do they try to be peaceful first?" Tovan thought about that question. He had worked with humans for 10 years now. He had asked them the same thing once. "Because they know what they're capable of," he said finally. "And they don't like it. They prefer the other way. The talking way. The peaceful way. But when you take that option away from them, when you hurt someone they're trying to protect, then you see what they really are." "What are they?" "Hunters," Tovan said. "The kind that don't give up. The kind that chase their prey until it can't run anymore. Humans evolved on a death world, hunting animals bigger and stronger than themselves. They did it by never stopping, by outlasting everything else. That instinct is still there, buried under all their civilization and politeness. But it's always there." Station security was entering the docking area now carefully. They had waited until the fight was over. They began securing the Vraxian pirates, putting restraints on their limbs. Daehyun stood up slowly. He retrieved his uniform jacket from where he had left it. He put it on, though it was torn and dirty now. He walked over to where Threxmar lay restrained and looked down at the pirate captain. "I gave you chances," Daehyun said. I asked nicely. "I tried everything I could think of to avoid this. You need to understand that." Threxmar said nothing. His eyes showed something that Vraxians rarely felt. Genuine fear. "When you get out of prison someday," Daehyun continued, "remember this. Remember that humans always try the peaceful way first. Always. But when we say we're getting annoyed, you should listen. You should leave. Because what comes next isn't pretty for anyone." He turned and started walking toward the security center. His legs were shaking slightly. Adrenaline was wearing off now. He would need medical attention for his hands. Maybe some ice for his ribs. But he had done his job. The hostages were safe. The pirates were caught. Behind him, Threxmar finally understood what every other species in the galaxy had learned. There was a reason aliens ran when humans said those words. There was a reason that phrase had become famous. It wasn't a threat. It was a courtesy. It was a human's way of saying, "I've tried everything else, and if you didn't listen, if you pushed anyway, then you learned why humans were the most patient species in the galaxy. Because they had to be. because when their patience ended, nothing could stop what came next. Part 1. The Incident at Station Helios Station. Helios floated in the darkness of space like a massive wheel of lights. Thousands of ships came and went every day, bringing traders from hundreds of different planets. The station was neutral ground, a place where any species could do business without fear. At least that was how it was supposed to work. Lieutenant Commander Dae-hyun Park stood near the main docking area, watching the crowd. He wore the blue uniform of the Galactic Council's peacekeeping division. His job was simple: keep everyone safe and solve problems before they became fights. He was good at his job, very good. In 3 years at Station Helios, he had never needed to throw a punch. Dae-hyun was tall for a human with short black hair and calm dark eyes. Other species often thought he looked weak. Humans always looked weak to them. No thick armor like the Vraxians, no sharp claws like the Drothians, no poisonous skin like the Quillari, just soft flesh and a quiet smile. That morning started like any other. Dae-hyun bought coffee from a Quillari vendor who made it just the way he liked. He checked the daily reports. 3 minor disputes overnight, all resolved peacefully. He was reading about a shipping delay when the screaming started. The Vraxians arrived in force. 15 of them, all wearing combat armor that made them look even bigger than they already were. Vraxians were massive creatures, standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick exoskeletons covering their bodies. They had 4 arms and moved like insects, quick and aggressive. Their leader was called Threxmar. Dae-hyun knew him from wanted posters. The Vraxian was a pirate captain who had raided merchant ships for 5 years without getting caught. Now he was here on Station Helios, breaking every law the station had. The pirates moved through the docking area like a storm. They knocked over cargo containers. They grabbed merchants and took their credits. Station security tried to respond, but the Vraxians were too strong and too fast. Within minutes, they had taken over an entire section of the dock. Dae-hyun walked toward them. His hand rested on his communicator, but not on his weapon. "Not yet, Threxmar," he called out in Galactic Common. "This is neutral ground. You need to leave." The Vraxian turned to look at him. Threxmar's mouth parts clicked together, and what Dae-hyun had learned was laughter. "A human," the pirate said. "I have heard about your species. So small, so weak. You should run away, little soft skin." "I don't want to fight you," Dae-hyun said. His voice was calm and steady. "Take your crew and leave. Nobody needs to get hurt." Threxmar clicked his mouth parts again. "We are taking what we want. You cannot stop us." Other aliens in the area were watching now. Some were recording on their devices. Dae-hyun saw a Quillari family huddled behind a cargo container. The mother was trying to keep her child quiet. The child looked terrified. "Let these people go," Dae-hyun said. "You can take supplies if you need them. We can arrange that. But you need to release the hostages." For a moment, Threxmar seemed to consider this. Then one of his pirates grabbed the Quillari mother. Another one snatched the child, who started crying. Dae-hyun's expression didn't change. "Put them down, or what?" Threxmar moved closer. He was more than twice Dae-hyun's size. "What will the little human do?" "I'm asking nicely," Dae-hyun said. "Then please, put them down." The Vraxians thought this was hilarious. They clicked and hissed with laughter. The pirate holding the Quillari child shook the small creature roughly. "Stop crying," he demanded. The child cried harder. Dae-hyun took a slow breath. "This is your last chance. Let them go. Leave the station. Nobody needs to get hurt." Threxmar stepped forward until he was looming over Dae-hyun. "You bore me, human. Your species is weak. You have no armor, no weapons worth fearing. You are nothing but—" The Quillari child screamed. The pirate holding her had struck her across the face with one of his armored hands. Blood dripped from the child's mouth. The mother was sobbing, begging in her own language. Dae-hyun stood very still for a long moment. His face was blank. Then slowly he reached up and removed his uniform jacket. He folded it carefully and set it on a nearby cargo container. He rolled up his sleeves one at a time. "Now I'm really getting annoyed," he said quietly. The reaction was immediate and shocking. Every alien in the docking area who heard those words suddenly scrambled away. The merchants who had been watching grabbed their belongings and ran. Station security officers backed up toward the exits. Even the hostages started trying to crawl away from Dae-hyun, not toward him. The Quillari vendor who sold Dae-hyun his coffee every morning grabbed his stand and ran faster than Dae-hyun had ever seen him move. As he passed, he shouted something in Quillari that sounded like a prayer. Within 30 seconds, the entire docking area was empty except for Dae-hyun and the 15 Vraxian pirates. Somewhere, alarm sirens started wailing. The station's automated systems activated emergency protocols. Threxmar looked around, confused. What is happening? Why are they running? His pirates seemed uncertain now. They released the hostages, who immediately fled toward the nearest exit. The Quillari mother scooped up her bleeding child and ran without looking back. They are running from you, one of the pirates said to Dae-hyun. But why? You are just one small human. Dae-hyun started walking toward them. His steps were measured and calm. His hands were loose at his sides. I gave you chances, he said. I asked nicely. I tried to find a peaceful solution. You think you can fight us? Threxmar clicked his mouth parts, but it sounded different now, less like laughter. We are Vraxian warriors. We have conquered planets. I know, Dae-hyun said. He was still walking forward. I read your file. You're very dangerous. The pirates formed a line, ready to fight. They were trained warriors wearing combat armor. They had weapons and size and strength on their side. 15 against 1. Dae-hyun didn't stop walking. In the station security center, an older Quillari officer named Tovan was frantically typing commands into his console. He activated emergency blast shields. He sealed off the entire docking section. He sent priority messages to every peacekeeping ship within range. His assistant, a young Drothian who had only worked at the station for 6 months, looked confused. Sir, shouldn't we send security forces to help the human? Tovan's hands were shaking. No, but he's outnumbered 15 to 1. He needs backup. He doesn't need backup. Tovan pulled up the camera feeds from the docking area. We need to protect everyone else. When a human says those words, when they say they're getting annoyed, it means they're done being patient. It means they've made their choice. What choice? Tovan looked at his assistant with something like pity. To stop being civilized. On the camera feed, they watched Dae-hyun reach the first Vraxian pirate. The fight was about to begin. The station's automated systems locked down the entire section. Heavy blast doors slammed shut. The cameras switched to reinforced shielding mode. Somewhere in the depths of space, the nearest human military vessel received Tovan's emergency transmission and changed course toward Station Helios Daehyun Park. The quiet diplomat who always solved problems with words cracked his knuckles once and looked at Threxmar. Shall we begin? He asked politely.